Good morning, friends. Hope that this finds you well rested, optimistic about the future. Today is the 41st day of Sfiras HaOmer, which is 5 weeks and 6 days. We're finishing up the 5th week of the Omer. And today is an interesting characteristic of the acquisition of wisdom, which is to have some sort of calm. It's known as a Yishuv Adas, but to have a settled state of being while one is learning, particularly in the process of learning. And it means a few things. That, like the very beginning of Pirkei Avos says, having Mesunim Medin, that when it comes to answering questions in Jewish law, when it comes to answering questions in Jewish thought, philosophy, it's important to be really intentional. It's important to think it through, not just to respond off the cuff. On a deeper level, Yishuv is a language of being settled, in that a person is where they belong. It's a very big principle that the natural habitat of a human is really one of spirituality. Shabbos in particular, it's a place of Shabbos itself means a return. Like the word tshuva, Shabbos shuva is a Shabbos of returning to that space of feeling at home within spirituality. We are a mixture between a body and a soul. We live in a physical world. We eat physical food. We make blessings. We elevate it to a level of spirituality. But at the end, if we're not eating and drinking and sleeping, we're not going to be able to keep the soul in the body. So we have moments throughout our day where we're able to really refocus and remind ourselves who we are. Who we are is essentially a soul that's wrapped in a body. We have to take care of the body. The body enjoys certain pleasures. The soul enjoys other pleasures. The ultimate kind of partnership is where the body is schlepped along with the pleasure of the soul, in that physical pleasures are finite. A person enjoys eating a particular food, so in order for the second time we eat that food, it's less good than the first bite. Certainly if we eat 2 or 3 or 4, at some point you get tired of it. Because that's the way of physicality. Physicality has limitations. It naturally kind of it atrophies. As opposed to spirituality, we think about making an aliyah, an elevation. We can always come closer and closer to the divine. Person never maxes out. Right? The idea that on the yard site, the soul is rejudged and kind of gets promoted. Even those who have died thousands of years ago, every single year, they're getting closer and closer to the divine. Because it's infinite, it's eternal. There's always more to understand, there's always more to appreciate about the goodness of the divine, and to benefit from the pleasure of being on the same wavelength. So when a person is sitting and learning in an ideal space, the rest of the world is not providing any sort of distraction. We've said a few times the word for noise, ra'ash. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin dies about 122 years ago. Says that it's related to the word rasha, evil, because noise distracts us. And there's all sorts of noise. There's internal noise of you're not good enough, or you should be embarrassed, or you're not worthy. We have all sorts of negative noises that come inside. We have noises of arrogance. We have noises that say all sorts of things that distract and detract from us being focused. Being able to have a moment of quiet when we're learning, where those noises, can get muffled. It's a very unique gift that the divine has given us, for those who can develop it, to be able to take a break, to really be able to focus without that background noise. And it takes time. When I first got to yeshiva, I wasn't used to sitting for 3 hours in the morning for a big chunk of time uninterrupted, to focus on something for 3 hours. When I got to later in yeshiva, morning seder became like 4.5 hours of just a big chunk of time where you're sitting and learning. And it became clear over time that whatever problems existed at 9 o'clock in the morning, generally speaking, those problems will also be there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That at 9:30, if there's nothing to do about it, why think about it? So part of what the yishuv of the learning is really a return to a place where our souls can get nourished. And when our souls are nourished, then there's no competition for what's going on in the news. There's no competition for what's going on in sports or in anything else that we might be curious about, because as enjoyable and entertaining as those things are, none of them are as fulfilling as being able to come closer to the divine. So it's a really unique gift to be able to compartmentalize those thoughts. And it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time, which is one of the reasons why here it's called one of the kinyanim of Torah. It's a tool, it's a mechanism to be able to acquire wisdom. Part of the process here of preparation for Kabbalah Torah, for Shavuos, is that we're trying to carve out all of the stuff internally that doesn't belong there. Because, like we've said, if a person wants to receive the Torah, then you need to have some sort of vessel that has the capacity to hold it. But if who we are as people are constantly distracted by other thoughts, we're not really available, not just for wisdom, but even to have a conversation with somebody else. If somebody's struggling and they say, hey, can I talk to you? I have a lot that's on my chest I want to get off. And all you can think about is what's happening later today or over this weekend or your next vacation or bills to pay, and there's no space to focus on another. So then one is limited in even being able to have human interactions where a person is present. So there's a real utility, not just about spiritual pursuits of being able to have the self-control to say, that's an interesting thought, let's put a pin in it and we'll come back to it when there's relevant. Or actually that thought is like not helpful ever. Never want to think about that again because it's just destructive, it's just counterproductive. That one we're not going to put a pin in it, we're just going to let it fly away. But that's something that really requires a lot of work. And so the rabbis tell us it's much easier to replace something that's negative with something that's positive. King David says, Sormei rava aseh toiv, remove oneself from evil and do good. The best way to remove oneself from doing bad things is to be preoccupied with being good, with doing good things. And one of the easiest kind of points of entry into filling one's head with good thoughts is a person is engaged in learning. So if a person is engaged in learning a text and studying something, particularly with a chavrusa, with a study partner, even listening to a lecture, or a person is studying by themselves, if a person is able to amplify the voice of the text, to be able to amplify the voice of what's being said, it can really kind of be the dominant voice that everything else falls into the background. Sometimes it's really hard to lose a complete set of consciousness around other things. And the rabbis tell us that we should be able to hold in our heads multiple thoughts. But what's the one that we're focused on? To the extent that things that we're paying attention to are really very much in the background and are not occupying or draining the bandwidth that we have. So if a person is really sitting and learning and is hearing the voice of the text and is thinking about, okay, so what does this mean for me? So a person is supposed to be really deliberate when they're sitting and learning. Okay, so I should really be focused on what I'm doing right now and be paying attention to the learning. Well, why is that important? Why do the rabbis want us to focus on this? What could happen if? So if a person approaches learning as, listen, I'm supposed to do the daf, I'm supposed to learn one page of Talmud. So, all right, let me just knock this thing out so I can free up the rest of my day. Some people approach that way with prayer as well. I have to daven, so I have to make brachos. Let me just do this. Let me just bench, and then I can go on to do something that I want to do. That's not a conscious presentation of self in the moment. It's disrespectful to the text. When we think about the holiness of the text, the holiness of the words of a Sefer Torah, but the truth is of any printed Sefer, those letters are holy. God created the world through speech, which is comprised of letters. Those are the building blocks of creation. When a person sits and learns Torah, they're creating universes. The rabbis, the Ramchal in particular, speaks about how this world is impacted by even just one, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, that it's worth all of the generations of humanity, coming into existence, this entire universe, the cosmos, all of the planets, the solar systems, all of it's worth it for us, for just one line, to be able to say, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, right, to acknowledge the greatness of the divine. When a person sits and learns Torah, even for 1 minute, each word is, the rabbis tell us, every word of Torah is worth all of the mitzvahs, all of the Torah. It says Talmud Torah keneged kulam, that the study of Torah is equal to all of the other mitzvahs. So a person, is, imagine your best friend or somebody in your family, somebody who's passed away perhaps, and you have 5 minutes to talk to them, right, face to face. You wouldn't be thinking about anything else. You'd be completely present because you value so much the ability to connect. And that's what Torah is. Torah is a language of Hirah. It's a language of instruction. It's being able to hear the divine. So a person is hearing the voice of the divine, of the wisdom of our sages for generations, all the way back to Matan Torah, to Moses. And something pops up on the screen about a stock goes up or down, or a baseball team is scores or loses. That's competition to hearing, the words of the divine. So a yishuv is a sense of an appreciation of the value. To appreciate something, like something is depreciated, goes down in value. Appreciation is to go up in value. That when we come to a text, when we have the ability to learn, we have to appreciate it. We have to value the worth of that. To have insights into the divine, to have guidance around morality, around ethics. This world is so broken. What we need is a path forward. We need a way to make sense of it. We need to have clarity on how do we answer this anti-transgender legislation. How do we support people who are afraid to be who they are in certain states? How do we find language and articulate in a state particularly that loves guns and being able to do whatever you want and have the government have no place in the day-to-day lives of individuals, and now we're inviting them into the bedrooms of our children to dictate who our children can be and how they can dress, is insane. We need wisdom. We need thoughts. We need a way to articulate in both educational and persuasive ways. And we look to the Torah for guidance. God, the rabbis tell us, looked into the Torah to create this world. This world is a reflection of the Torah. When the world is broken, the Torah can provide guidance to teach us how we're meant to be, what's the ideal way of being. So the Torah itself is a path towards a return of the ideal. It's a path towards us resettling and occupying the space that's appropriate for us. How do we know when to stay in our own lane? What is our own lane? When do we need to have permission to advocate on others? When do we hear it as a moral imperative that we don't need to wait for others to say something? And how do we say it? And when do we say it? These are all things which require a certain amount of precision. And honestly, for some of them, they don't require any precision. Say it however you want to say it. Say it whenever you want to say it, because it needs to be said. But that's what the power of learning contains within it. It contains the perspective and the guidance to know how we're meant to function in this world. And so if a person sits down and approaches a text and approaches a sugya with the understanding that this is the portal, this has all of the answers, this is the path towards clarity of how we're supposed to function in the world. So nothing's more important. I have to go to the dentist today, just a regular, regular cleaning. But Baruch Hashem, and I'm grateful. I have a great dentist and all the things, but I also have anxieties, right? The dentist gives me instructions of how I'm supposed to not brush too hard because I'm too intense of a human being. I listen, right? I'm paying attention because it's really important instructions. You go to the doctor says you have to eat these foods, not these. You have to do this. It's important instruction, so you pay attention. And if you don't have a great memory, you write it down. And then you have to review it, and then you have to talk about it. You say, listen, this is what's really important for my body to be healthy. And the Torah is telling us this is what's really good for your soul to be healthy. This is really what's important for society to be healthy. So it's important to pay attention. And so when we have opportunities today as a way of bringing it into the practical, if a person has thoughts of spiritual growth, of how to work on ourselves, our character traits, interpersonal relationships, just take a moment and kind of clear your head first. That I'm now going to think about, right? There's something that's coming up. I have a difficult conversation with somebody, or somebody wants to talk to me and I know that they're really in pain. I want to be available. Work on the process of clearing out the head to create some sort of space, clearing out the heart, that a person that you can really be present. And then if thoughts come in, really just notice at least, how much self-control do I have in controlling my thoughts? If I think something negative about somebody, that's just not generative, or if I think about something that's destructive, or like just getting in the way of me being productive. Just to know as a baseline, and then recognize that we have the capacity to improve it. I hope that everybody has a productive and healthy and happy day. Kol tov.